Hello everyone and welcome to This Week in Stupid for 11th of September 2021. I hope I'm not going to trigger Americans here. I hope I'm not going to make a mistake, have people yell at me that it's too soon for covering the following news. But you know what? I don't think it's offensive. I mean, it's something that happened in the world and it happened recently. In fact, it happened last week. So I guess we should talk about it, right? So Americans, please don't hold it against me. A couple of days ago, in the magnificent country of Austria, this happened. And as you can see, we see a Boeing that is flying very, very low to the ground. Now, when this recording hit the internet, I noticed two types of reactions. First of all was from my fellow American subscribers, which I guess a picture is worth 1,000 words, and this is how my fellow American subscribers look like while watching the video. And the second group of people were the skeptics. Now, the skeptics were saying that the video is edited, and you had people trying to say, no, it's fake. Oh, no, like, look at the reflection. Clearly, it's not fake. But, I guess, like, the skeptics were BTFO'd when pictures from other angles started popping up on the internet.
Just wave to the pilot in a minute. Holy fucking shit.
You've got to be kidding me. Are you kidding me? Fuck!
So this got me a little bit curious. I started investigating. Initially, they were saying that this happened in Australia, but as I read the news, I couldn't find anything about it until eventually, on some obscure website, it turns out that the country of Austria has been invaded by NATO. And the reason I'm saying this is that Austria is not a member of NATO. That plane was supposed to fly at 10,000 feet altitude, not at 1,000 feet altitude. And apparently Austria scrambled 4 fighter jets in order to escort the plane all the way back to Hungary, where it safely landed. Now, I don't know why the pilot did that. I don't know what's going on, but I'm pretty sure the military police is waiting for the pilot on the airport because, I mean, you just don't do that. According to the spokesperson of Austria, he compared what the pilot did with a drunk driver that's driving on the wrong side of the road. And apparently this is also the most serious violation of Austrian airspace in the past 20 years. Yeah, I mean, that's Austria, it's not Taiwan. You can't just violate the airspace like that. In other news, reactionary people are at it yet again, and this time they've made an extension for people's browsers in order to show if something is liberal or racist. Now, what the browser does is it replaces the word white with the word black, and it replaces the word black with the word white. So when you look at articles, you can see stuff like this from Affinity. When will black people stop being black peopling? From The Nation, I am not ready to re-enter black society. No white only safe spaces are not racist. So you kind of get it. Look at this Vox, the blackness of anti-lockdown protests. Now, you know, like reactionaries just don't understand because it's really not the same. Like things are equal but different. Like black people have been historically marginalized. White people haven't, so it's okay if some injustice happens today to redeem the injustice of the past. You don't understand, like, anti-racism, it pierces through the fabric of the universe. Like the atoms get split as the time machine flies into it. And by creating injustices today, we can fix the horrors of the past. And this is what the reactionaries just don't get it. They just don't understand it. They think they're smart and clever by having, like, a little browser extension like this. But in reality, they're just dumb. They're just dumb and reactionary. And speaking of reactionary, I got a couple of questions from my subscribers which I haven't addressed, but I decided to address today because yesterday it finally happened to me. So, alright. Have you ever tried walking into a restaurant and you see a woman that's running towards you and she's hysterical, like her arms are flapping and, you know, she's acting as if the end of the world is upon us? And then you realize what the problem is. You see, you are not wearing your mask. Because, like in Romania, for example, you can walk outside without a mask, like it's legal, but if you enter a place like a restaurant, you have to mask up. So
How the
if you forget
Iraqian
to do
representative
that,
of
you
the
cause
people
distress. You cause a little
practices
bit of
his
distress to
seduction
the lady.
arts.
Not because you're
Now,
getting
you
her
may
sick,
have
but
heard of
because the
Kama
cops can
Sutra,
come
you
in
may
and
have
find
heard
the
of,
restaurant.
various
I went
pickup
in
artists.
there at the restaurant. I put the mask, and I'm offered the seat at the table. And when I sit down, I can take the mask off. So a lot of people are wondering. It's like, what's happening? Is like the virus doesn't sit at the table. Like what? Okay, and I understand. Like it's kind of different. So I tried contacting Fauci to ask him about this. Like, why is it that when you enter a restaurant, you have to keep it on, but when you sit at the table, you can take it off? Like, what is the scientific explanation? Unfortunately, Fauci didn't respond. Like, he's got a nation to run, so he's a little bit of the man. But I asked friends of mine, so this is not very scientific, but here's what I think. Like, I came up with a bit of visual aid so you guys can understand. So this is what I think. It's like the virus goes at the top level. It's like the stratosphere, if you like. So when you're sitting down, you're underneath it. Otherwise, I don't explain it. I can't really understand why else. So this is like the best thing I came up with. But if you guys have like a different explanation of how the science works, if any of you can commune with the science, in other words, if any of you are a journalist, please let me know, because I'm a little bit curious about how this is supposed to function.
Now, some of you are upset because I cover a lot of American news, and even though I'm from Europe, I don't talk about European news. Fine, I'll show you why. Be careful what you wish for. Okay, let's talk about Sweden. Usually I don't talk about Sweden because everything that is a low-hanging fruit. If I were to talk about Sweden, this week is stupid would probably be an entire week. But fine, let's talk about it. Apparently, the Iraqi defense minister has got himself into a bit of a pickle. He's got himself into a little bit of a scandal. Turns out he was flirting with a male Swedish lad in his 20s. And the problem was that the Swedish lad was refusing the very charming and seductive advances of the Iraqi defense minister. And once the conversation became public, apparently the scandal has led to a marriage crisis for the Iraqi defense minister. Now, normally I wouldn't cover this, but we have access to the logs. All right, so we can now see the mating call of the Sultan. You may think you know a little bit of Kama Sutra. Maybe you watched some American pickup artists. Like maybe you know how to get your A game. But trust me, like the logs that I'm going to talk about, I mean, they're way and above your level. Like if you master the art of romance, like this sheik here has done, you won't ever need a wingman ever again. Like you can walk into a bar and all the ladies are going to beg you to have their phone number. So, all right, listen to the logs, all right? We have the Swedish lad trying to play hard to get, saying that, no, I have a girlfriend, to which the sheik has responded, can you meet? Sex. She is my love and me her love. Yes, like the Swedish man says. I want to fuck you. Sex, 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 sex. What I love here the most is the two people that don't really have a mastery over the English language, but that doesn't mean that love cannot find a way. Because if you try hard enough, you can always find that back door from which love can enter. Unfortunately, the thing which will definitely block love from entering is the Chinese Communist Party. You'll see, while the Iraqi minister is definitely promoting the concept of effeminate Swedish men, even though it can jeopardize his relationship, China bans feminine men on television. Broadcasters ordered to resolutely put an end to, and I quote, sissy men and other abnormal aesthetics by the communist broadcast regulators. Ugh, if only the United States could create a gender university in China like they created one in Kabul. If only the Chinese people were white, so Robin DiAngelo can go there
and talk to them about white fragility and explain to them how to behave properly? If only the Chinese were a little bit weaker, so the America could educate them properly, like they're trying to educate the rest of the world. Unfortunately, it is not the perfect system that we live in, so we just have to focus more on our own nations and our own countries rather than what's happening abroad. Because there are a lot of bad things that are happening within. A lot of bad things that need to be called out. For example, Facebook apologizes after labeling black men primates in video. I know people who have been fired for less, but, well, Facebook is above getting firing. Like, we're not going to see any people at Facebook, especially in the leadership, getting laid off for such a thing. But, apparently, it is what they like to consider an unacceptable error. We apologize to anyone who may have seen these offenses recommendations. We disabled the entire topic recommendation feature as soon as we realized that this was happening, so we could investigate the cause and prevent this from happening again. By the way, this is the company you trust with your data. This is the company you trust that they have AI which is going to monitor your speech and is going to make sure that you're speaking correctly. Yes? These are the people we trust with our information. Facial recognition software has been criticized by civil rights advocates who point out problems with accuracy, particularly when it comes to people who are not white. Facebook users in recent days who watched a British tabloid video featuring black men were shown an auto-generated prompt asking if they would like to keep seeing videos about primates. What? Oh, I should read these articles before doing it live. Oh my god. This is according to the New York Times. The June 2020 video in question, posted by the Daily Mail, was titled "White Man Call Cops on Black Men on Manila." Well, at least they didn't get Martin Luther King to have a speech. My god. This reminds me of 2016 internet right here. It's interesting because, again, like, if you were to make a competition of having people to make spicy memes, I don't think you'd get something like that. Like, this is something that only the high mind, the wise people at Facebook could have come up with, I gotta say. I mean, Facebook is a hotbed of the worst thing imaginable, the worst thing humanity has ever come up with, the biggest danger to a free, liberal, and democratic state, and that is, of course, misinformation. I mean, here you have the LA Teacher Union head on public school education, a pillar of the community, a saint. And she says, there is no such thing as learning loss. Our kids didn't lose anything. It's okay that our babies may not have learned all their timetables because they learned resilience. They learned survival. They know the difference between a riot and a protest. They know the words insurrection and coup. And of course, you know, these beautiful words, they brought me to tears. Like, I was genuinely moved by the passion that this teacher has for our children. But of course, you have Facebook and you have reactionary people saying reactionary things.
I think this tells us a lot about not just what's going on in the public school system in Los Angeles, but in a lot of places all over the country.
Oh my gosh, I have a million thoughts on this one, Buck. First of all, just a friendly reminder that the actual organized socialist groups in America encourage their members to become teachers, not for anything to do with like, oh, we care about kids and their future. Instead, it's just to be able to gain the political power that comes with being a teacher and specifically a member of the teachers union. So that's good for us to note, and it makes sense why they've politicized all of the COVID lockdowns, saying they won't even return to school until they get their policies approved that have nothing to do with education.
Now that to me is pure evil. How can Facebook allow, how can a private company allow in a democratic nation, in a free society, how can they allow misinformation to pass like that? Don't they know the harm that they can cause? Because the citizen is a person that needs to be treated like a child. He is like a little boy coming out of the mother's womb. And because of that, we need to be very, very, very careful with the information that reaches his ear. Because then the citizen may be led astray like a bad sheep moving away from the flock. And Facebook needs to be the role of the shepherd. He needs to be the one that brings that little lamb back into the flock and make sure that all the sheep are moving in one direction. So yeah, I mean, you know, that's what you get. You get to see on Facebook just blatant misinformation, just slandering the good work of teachers, suggesting that a person can have alternative information without any proof whatsoever. Now, my only hope was that the fact checkers would wake up to this, that the fact checkers would do something about it. But apparently, the fact checkers are busy doing something else. The fact checkers are fact checking themselves. You see, the fact checker is this noble role that fills our free and democratic society, where it tells you that even if your body senses are telling you something, even if your very eyes are telling you something, your eyes can deceive you because reality can be deceiving. And here comes the fact checker to tell you what you actually need to know despite of what you see. Now, last week, as you guys know, 14 Marines perished in Afghanistan, and there was a funeral to which the US president has attended. And a lot of people saw with their very eyes that the president was checking his watch, a thing which people consider to be disrespectful. But I personally believe that it's not the case because, you see, the ceremony was so beautiful, it was so moving that the president was checking his watch, hoping that there is just more to it. That it's like, oh my God, I hope it's not going to be over soon because this is like such a beautiful ceremony that the US government had that he just wanted more of it. You know, he was very moved, like he was finding out new things that those brave warriors went through. But again, you know, like people were saying that he was checking his watch, and the fact checkers are coming to tell you that no, that's wrong, okay? Like you are taking the wrong information. Yes, he was checking his watch, but he only did it after the ceremony. So it's fine, okay? Like checking the watch during the ceremony is disrespectful, but checking it afterward, it's completely proper. It's completely what you should do, right? Well, it turns out that the fact checkers had to fact check themselves, and there is a correction and clarification at the end of the screen. The story was updated to note that Biden checked his watch multiple times at the dignified transfer event, including during the ceremony itself. The rating has been changed for partially false to missing context. Well, you know, I mean, at least they did something. Now, it's important that the fact checkers maintain their reputation. So they can't just take down the article. They can't just change the thing to false. No, because we still need to look at the fact checkers as our shepherds, or at least the dogs that the shepherd employs. Yes, like Facebook is the shepherd. The fact checkers are the dogs that manage to keep the sheep in line and guide them in a proper manner. And now that we're on the subject of comparisons with the Holy Book, I think you guys know that the evil people from Texas, they decided to troll the Democrats. And I gotta say, I really hate trolling, especially when it comes at the expense of human rights and when they're clearly doing it to upset the other side rather than to pass legislation. You see, like during the height of the debate for getting people vaccinating and pushing health onto society, you have the Texas lawmakers saying, oh, so you don't think my body, my choice anymore. Okay, well, if it has a heartbeat, then you're not going to be able to get an abortion. You can see, like, the problem with this. Like, you can see why a lot of people were upset. And I just want to say that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You know, it seems as if the right of women to choose is being banned upon. But a new warrior has entered the ring. A new prestigious institution, according to Salon, has come to save the day. Satanists may be the last best hope to save abortion rights in Texas. I mean, you know, those Satanists, they're doing God's work. I hope that they are going to manage to restore normality into the state of Texas, because we see very progressive individuals that are now threatening religious people with a good time. They're saying it would be awesome if all over Texas there was a mass exodus of women from all dating apps. By the million, Texas women should delete Bumble, Hinge, Tinder, Match, and all the others. Texas men need to see the women's profiles go dark. So they're threatening the religious people that they're going to withhold from promiscuous sex. I'm not making this up. And by the way, like, this isn't the only, it's just like the one that I managed to save, because I had the folder, but unfortunately it would take hours to go through all of it. Look, all I'm saying is allow the Satanists to do their stuff, because you're not convincing them with this. You're not, like, I'm trying to be on your side here. I'm trying to help you regain normalcy, but this is not the way to do it. This is abnormal. This is not okay, all right? Like, just let it to the professionals. Now, I'll do Jen Psaki here and circle back. Oh, I'm circling back so hard right now. Let's circle back to the Afghanistan situation. You see, the United States, in their ever compassion and empathy, has decided, after fucking up the situation in Afghanistan, to allow the refugees from the war that they created to move into the United States. And all is well and good until a whistleblower, a refugee, a translator, has pointed out the mistreatment that he is being given. You see, apparently when it comes to his cuisine, to the food that the government is providing to him, Chef Ramsay was not involved, and this is what he got during last night for dinner. Homeless people, look what's being done, okay? Not complaining, but, by the way, every time you hear but, everything before the but is a complete lie. Not complaining, but this is what I got last night for dinner, and the next meal is 12 hours later. So he has to go to sleep, and when he wakes up, he gets a new meal. Refugee life might be safe, but never easy and favorable. Fort Bliss, El Paso, Texas. Now, what I found interesting about it is that people that are left-leaning, like actual progressive people, and I checked the bio, as well as blue check marks, are now shaming this poor lad. They're actually shaming the suffering and the plight that this man is going through. And they're saying, like, 13 Marines sacrificed their lives so you could come to our country and tweet about how you don't like your free food. Shake my head. Cassandra says, you are complaining though? You could go to a restaurant in Afghanistan and get whatever you want. You could always go to home to Afghanistan. Like, look how many races saying go back where you came from. But they're saying it in a different way so that they sound more politically correct. No, they're racist. They need to be called out. I'd be happy to pay for your ticket to go back, since it's so rough here that you have to take your sandwich apart and put the bread out of the shot. Also, this was a sandwich. They gave him a sandwich. A sandwich! My God, like... but luckily, we also have people that are issuing more favorable comments, and they see the humanity in this individual. They look past, and they see the gross oppression that's being done here. And you have here, like, Muhammad saying, wishing only suffering, okay? So if you're like, Muhammad wishes suffering upon you, he's casting a spell. It's like in D&D, you know, you flip the dice, like, what do you want? I want suffering on the people on Twitter, and then you roll. Natural 20, boom. So suffering on those in the comments who think this man deserves 500 calories. Do you see what Muhammad did? He actually went and calculated the calories within that sandwich because the man has a phone. So, you know, I don't like pushing ideology on people. That's what the fact checkers do. But I'm going to leave it up to you to decide which one is right or which one is wrong. I personally, though, like, this is just me, I think Chef Ramsay should have been called and the dinner should have been organized by him. I think that the government, if they have several $1 billion of equipment into the hands of the Taliban, and I think that is because the Americans have too much money. Just too much money. I mean, they're like, who cares about that equipment? We can make new one. We can make the money printer go brrrr, and then we can just make more. And with this amount of cash, the Americans couldn't get this poor lad a Big Mac and a Coke? Are you telling me they couldn't have even done that? How does they expect this man to integrate into American society if they're not fattening him up? Now, speaking about integration, there is the vaccine mandate, which came recently. And a lot of people are pointing out that you can't argue against it. Like, if you argue against it, you're going to be viewed as a pariah. You're going to be banned from social media. And that's not really true. Like, let me show you an example.
Requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people, and it's not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct. Go ahead.
We know that with enforcement, employers who refuse to implement the vaccine rules.
So look, it's quite simple, you bigot. Let me explain to you. It's to help the poor refugees to integrate into American society. Because the American government is like a mother that cares about its sons and wants to provide with health and safety for them. But only if they act like good, decent American citizens. In other words, the refugee now has to get a job, and the moment he managed to get a job, then he has integrated in the American system, and then the American system cares about him, showers him with compassion and love, and gets him to get that vaccine. Now, as I was saying, there is plenty of room for disagreement, and if anyone tells you you can't disagree with this, it's wrong. Hey, by the way, Politico, hire me as a fact checker. Hire me as a fact checker, because I'm going to show you, okay? Like, people who say that you can't disagree with the mandates are factually incorrect. You can always disagree and say that the government has not done enough.
One last thing, because you worked in Baltimore City on the law and policy side of putting health practices in. The idea that we've never seen a vaccine mandate this broad before, through OSHA or through any government body, it's too broad, it overreaches.
I don't think it goes far enough. I actually think that what Zeke said about interstate travel was exactly right. But in this case, we have childhood immunizations that we don't even think about. All 50 states have laws on the books to require routine childhood immunizations, which we really should be looking at the COVID vaccine the same way. And when it comes to employers, I think what the Biden administration did was quite brilliant, because it gives air cover for businesses that have wanted to do this, that have wanted to put vaccine mandates in place, but they didn't want to have their employees complain about them. Now they can say, hey, we didn't really want to do this, but the administration, the federal government is making us do it. It also helps to level the playing field so that people aren't then going to threaten to go to another workplace. If every workplace has that same requirement, that's a good thing. So I don't think it's overreach. I think this is what's needed in the middle of a pandemic. And in fact, I think the Biden administration, if anything, could have gone even further. I don't think it goes far enough.
There we go. I was right. If you guys don't start giving me super chats for this video, I'm going to quit and I'm going to start a career at Politico. I'm going to be the best fact checker ever. I'm going to check all the facts. I'm going to be that dog that Facebook employs to keep the sheep all in line. Now, there was something very peculiar last week. Like, I genuinely don't know why it happened, but it did. A lot, and I mean a lot, of, people like to call them Freudian slips, but I think that's a little bit too far. A lot of famous people and politicians misspoke. Here are some examples.
Daniel Andrews has announced that Victoria's lockdown will be extended until 2070 of the state. Until 20... Sorry, no, it won't. It will not. Take the lead back to the beginning. Take the lead back to the beginning. Daniel Andrews has announced that Victoria's lockdown will be extended until 70% of the state has had at least one dose of the COVID.
What's that? 5 decades to flatten the curve? Oh, okay, that seems interesting. Now, look at Joe Biden talking about inventing a time machine.
We are determined that we are going to deal with climate change, have zero emissions, net emissions by 2050. By 2020, make sure all our electricity is zero emissions. We're going to be able to do these things, but we've got to move. We've got to move. And we've got to move the rest of the world. It's not just the United States of America. By 2020, make sure all our electricity is zero emissions.
Fact check. Missing context. You see, what Joe Biden wants to push is for the invention of a time machine. We can now have a time machine and we can go all the way back into the past, and by 2020 there's going to be zero carbon emissions because we're going to take Greta Thunberg with Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator and push her back in time so she can warn people before all of this. There you go. Now finally, I saved the best for last. This is I guess like the most bizarre one, where the Australian, I believe she's the health minister, is talking about the New World Order.
Will exposure sites be put back in place, especially with reopening and people going back to pubs and stuff? Because our exposure sites still, will they be put back in place to be listed once we are reopening? Because they're not at the moment.
We will be looking at what contact tracing looks like in the New World Order. And yes, it will be pubs and clubs and other things if we have a positive case there. Our response may be different if we know that people are fully vaccinated. So we're working through a number of...
Wait. I did hear that term somewhere. It's a very specific term. It's kind of difficult because it doesn't really pop up in normal conversation. Let me just... Okay, so the New World Order. Let's see what this is. Do we have a Wikipedia article? Oh, look, yes, we do. The New World Order. Conspiracy theory. Why is the Australian health chief pushing conspiracy theories? Can you see how difficult my life would be if I was a fact checker? Yeah, I would have to deal with this kind of stuff. So what is this conspiracy theory? It hypothesizes a secret emerging totalitarian government. Many influential historical and contemporary figures have therefore been alleged to be part of a cabal, a secretive power elite with a globalist agenda that operates through many front organizations to orchestrate significant political and financial events, ranging from causing systemic crises to pushing through controversial policies at both national and international levels as steps in an ongoing plot to achieve world domination. New World Order. Conspiracy theorists unite. As the Australian health chief used this term. Oh my god, like those conspiracy theorists uniting. It's almost like if a politician would say the N-word, you would have all the anti-racists uniting. Huh? But the reality is like the politician could just be singing rap lyrics. Missing context, see? That's what missing context. Missing context. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed This Week in Stupid. And if you did, I would really, really beg of you if you can share it around on your social media, or if you can give it to your friends. You know, I'm trying to keep this light-heartening, entertaining, and all I'm trying to do is put a smile on people's faces in these very interesting and turmoilous times. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Again, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later. Also, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Does help a little bit with the algorithm. So, take care, and I'll see you all later.